Malditos Nerds, quizás uno de los honores más grandes que he tenido desde que comencé mi trayectoria en el mundo de los videojuegos es el estar sentado junto a Tim Schafer, quizás una de las leyendas más grandes que tenemos en esta industria. Vamos a ver qué tiene para decirnos antes de su exposición en Tecnópolis. Welcome, Tim. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Well, first of all, welcome to our country. It's an honor and a privilege being here with you.
It's great. We just got here yesterday, and everyone's been super friendly to us. I've never been to South America at all, and Buenos Aires is my first stop. We ate some great food. We hung out late at night.
Okay, let's begin talking about the reason that you're here is Tecnopolis, the talk you're going to give. What can you tell us in advance about that?
I'm going to go over a little bit of our history and what we've been through and what kind of struggles we've had trying to do creative, original games in a somewhat hostile environment, and relay some of our ups and downs as a company, and hopefully share some people who will pull out of it some either inspiration, or else they'll see some of the troubles to avoid. But hopefully an inspiration in the end of how to do creative stuff in a world where it's not always encouraging to do so.
Do you know something about Argentinian industry in indie gaming?
I'm just learning about the Argentinian industry today. I've heard a lot about. It seems like It seems like it's a period of time that people are just starting to figure out how to grow the industry and make it big. Just the fact that they're having this conference this year, I think, is a sign that the industry is growing here. So it's a really exciting time to be here and meet the people from the local industry.
Okay, Tim, can we talk now about your origins, how you begin in this world of video games?
Well, I played video games since there were video games. Like the very first video game system, the Odyssey, I had at my house, and then the Atari, and then having an Atari computer and playing those games, and I just grew up playing them. And I didn't realize that I could get a job making them. I thought that I would have to get a job programming databases or something boring and make games on the side. But then I got this job offer from LucasArts, which was then called Lucasfilm Games. And they wanted people who could program and write. And that was just such a, wow, that's exactly what I'm into. And so that started my whole career. And I was just very, very lucky, very fortunate.
I heard that the way you entered Lucasfilm was very funny.
Well, I had a phone interview where David Fox, the person who eventually hired me, he was asking me what kind of games I liked from LucasArts. And I had really loved this game called Ball Blaster. I had a disc on my Atari that played this game, Ball Blaster. Have you ever seen it with a grid and you're playing? It's like a soccer game. It was very, very high tech for the 80s. But I really liked it. And I said, I really love Ball Blaster. And he goes, Ball Blaster, really? And I goes, yeah. And he said, well, that's... the game was called Ball Blazer. It was only called Ball Blaster when it was pirated. I was like, oh, just... yeah, I was playing the pirated version of it, and he said, well, okay. Well, so I thought I'd blown the interview, and he said, well, just send us a cover letter describing your ideal job. What do you think your ideal job would be? And so because I thought I wasn't going to get this job because I just told him I was pirating his games, I made my resume as a text adventure because I really loved text adventures like Zork and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So I made it like a game, finding your ideal job, and you were like, I was typing in instructions, and my quest for an ideal job was put in the form of a text adventure, and I guess that got their attention, and that's how I got the job.
What can you tell us about your first work there in Lucasfilm?
My first, they wanted us to be what they called scumlets, which were, people like Ron Gilbert had an idea for a game, like Monkey Island, and then they wanted these scumlets to come through who were going to be programmers and also kind of help with the design and do the writing and kind of make every scene work. And so they put us in what they called Scum University. Scum was the language that the games were written in. And they called it ScumU and Scum University, and we were just learning how. And we had the Sam and Max art way before the game was ever made. We had this art from the offices of Sam and Max because Steve Purcell worked there, and we would just play with it every day and learn how to make characters walk, and learn how to make the door open and close, and learn how to make the TV animate, and just every day learn something. And then Ron Gilbert said, I'm making this game about pirates. Do you guys want to be on it? And I was like, yes, let's do it. And so Dave Grossman and I went onto Ron's project and started just playing around with that. And so it was just things were different then because it wasn't there's no internet, there's no like social media or this the way that we all face each other every day on the internet. It was very isolated, so it was just the three of us. It felt like an artist downstairs working on this game, and we didn't know if people were going to like it or not like it, or who knows. But we were mostly writing it to entertain each other, making each other laugh, and it's really surprising to me that we're still talking about it all these years later. But it's great.
We all love the game.
That's awesome. Thanks for playing.
What are your feelings, Tim, on the closure of LucasArts?
I was surprised by how surprised I was, because I thought LucasArts, had struggled for years. When I left in the end of the 90s, and then the 10 years, 13 years until now, it has had so many ups and downs and such a troubled existence, and a lot of heartbreaking things, like games that looked amazing that got canceled that we never got to see, and so we always knew it was going to die eventually because it was having so much trouble. But then when it finally did die, we were like, oh wow, I can't believe that actually happened. And it was kind of melancholy, kind of sad, but at least they won't have those ups and downs of hiring and firing people, and at least it's at peace now. I feel like I'm talking about a person.
After that, you came with Double Fine. Can you tell us about your experience there?
Yeah, I was at Lucas, and I felt like I wanted to have more control over the characters that I was creating, and I wanted to have more control about the team and what kind of things I could offer the employees, And so I started my own company, and we started working on this one idea I had for Psychonauts, and didn't really know what we were doing at all, and so the game took us 5 years to make because we still had to figure out how to, pay the rent and make sure the toilets were always working. I don't know, just a lot of stuff that you had to learn when you're starting your own company. But we were lucky enough that the Xbox launched at that time, and so we got a contract to make Psychonauts with the Xbox. And then, because we took so long to make the game, we got canceled, and we almost went out of business. But everyone loved the game. We were working on the game. We were like, we can't let this die. So we just took it everywhere and pitched it, and worked really hard, and we got it re-signed, and we got it shipped with Majesco. And there was a moment where we might never have made a game if that hadn't gone right, but the team everyone stuck with it. And we pulled out of that, and we're still around 13 years later.
Tim, what can you tell us about your relationship with Kickstarter?
Kickstarter was a really nice surprise. I didn't know, I'd heard about it, and we had been approached by some people there about, why don't you do a Kickstarter? And people told us, Kickstarter is fun for if you want to do some pottery or something, but no one's going to spend no Kickstarter's been bigger than maybe $50,000, And so it didn't really do much with it. But then Two Player Productions, who made a documentary about Minecraft, they wanted to do a documentary about us. And I thought that sounded like a great idea. And they had used Kickstarter to fund their documentary about Minecraft. So let's use Kickstarter to fund this documentary. And I thought that was great, but because I wanted to tell the whole story, I wanted to show the good and the bad about game development, I thought we can't do that if we're doing a game with a publisher, because the publisher is not going to want us to tell the bad part. Don't talk about all the things you cut from the game, because that makes the game sound like it's not good. So I knew we wouldn't get permission to tell the truth, and I really wanted to tell the truth of what game development is like. And so we decided to actually kickstart a game too. It'll just be a little game, a small game. So we decided to ask for $100,000 for the documentary and $300,000 for the game, which we were so scared about, because that was bigger than any Kickstarter we'd ever heard about, and people might get really mad at us for asking for so much money. And then we launched it, and I was hoping we'd get $2,000 that first night. Just if we could make $2,000, then we might make it to $400,000 by the end. And then when it started coming in, and we saw that we had met our goals in 6 hours, we started getting really this is really exciting. And then by the next day, we had made $1 million, and the team just went nuts, and everyone was screaming, because it's not just the money. The money is nice for a lot of different reasons, of course, but then also just the love and support that you get when all those people come through and they say, we want you to make this game. The recognition and just the love, getting that back from all those people after making games, because it could be a struggle sometimes, and you wonder what you're doing it for, and what's the point? If you're not making a ton of money, you're just doing it for creative satisfaction sometimes, and sometimes that's enough, and sometimes it's like, oh, why are we doing this? And then you get this huge wave of just support. It really inspires you and kept the whole company going, and I think turned our company around and made us reminded us who we were making the games for. because this was our community. These were our backers who just wanted us to do these games, and so we've kind of invited them in and let them see how the game's being made. We've been doing a lot more events where we're meeting them face to face, and so it's kind of allowed us to kind of mix with our fans and our players in a way that they get to come to the company and hang out with us, and we get to see them more, and it's really a whole new story, a whole new chapter in our story as a company.
What do you think is the best part of working without a publisher?
Well, publishers aren't evil or stupid. But people say that about them because they can be frustrating to work with. But really, they have access to the funds, and if they give you millions of dollars, of course they're going to want to make sure that you're not going to lose that money and that you're going to give it back. So they put a lot of checks in there, a lot of what they call risk mitigation. So like, okay, you want to do this game, and you want your main character to have 3 eyes, but it looks like people don't like games about characters with 3 eyes, so you can't put 3 eyes in your characters. That kind of stuff is really frustrating. So basically, Kickstarter allows you to get money without strings attached. I mean, someone can't tell you what to do now. They've given you the money, and I mean, you're accountable to them. But those are the people, the players, those are the people you've always felt accountable to anyway. If you've made a game, you always want to make a game that the players will like. It's just that you don't want to spend a big chunk of your time worrying about the people with the money and making sure they feel good about how you're spending their money. And now all that time is gone. It's gone into just making the game good now. So it's been great.
Let's talk about games now. Do you think there has been an evolution since your first work with Manic Mansion to The Cave?
Just definitely changed. If you look at Broken Age, the new game we're making, the way it feels and the storytelling in it is definitely different than the first games. But there's also a lot of similarities. Like I can see when people are playing it that they're feeling like this. This is the way I felt when I was playing Monkey Island in those games. I'm the only person who thought of doing that. And when they get a response and they realize the person who made the game thought of that, and they get this connection, I think it's really what art and doing art is all about in the first place.
Well, to finish the interview, we at the radio program have a contest in which people have to choose just one game. It's called The Game of Your Life. So, Tim, what would be the game of your life?
Are you saying if I made a game that represented my life, what would it be like? I've often thought about actually making a game about the process of making games, but sometimes I worry it wouldn't be any fun because it can be so strange, except for in the last few years, it's been a lot more fun to make games, for sure. So maybe we could make a game where you got to make a game. But I don't know if I want to play that because I do that all the time.
And now, you have to tell us one video game in gaming history that changed your views of gaming, the game that changed you as a gamer. It could be a game of yours or any game.
Okay, let me think about that. I mean, when I was a little kid, it was the adventure cartridge for the 2600 Atari, where you were just a little dot and you were chasing the dragon. I think that's the thing that opened my mind to like, oh my gosh, I love games so much. And then I was making, adventure games for so long, and when I played Mario 64 on the N64, I had another one of those like things where my brain just flipped open a few more times, and I realized, you can make a game where you really feel like you're in this world, and that I love that game. And then I think playing Katamari Damacy. Katamari Damacy is just the craziest game that made me feel like I should not censor myself at all. Like everything is in that game that probably Keta thought about. Everything he thought of, like it's just all in there and it's all unfiltered, and it's really inspiring that you to just not be afraid when you're doing anything creative, to just let it all come out, and that people will probably love it instead of hating it, which you're afraid of,
Thank you, Tim, for your time. It's been a pleasure to have you in Argentina, and we are seeing you in Tecnópolis.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Thanks for playing the games, and I hope people come to the show and enjoy the talks.
Malditos Nerds fue nada más y nada menos que Tim Schafer, responsable de muchísimos juegos que amamos, entre los cuales figura, por supuesto, Monkey Island, que es uno de los principales animadores de El Fichín de tu Vida. Bueno, como vimos, Tim también opinó sobre sus propios fichines y no podemos pedir más. Realmente estamos plenamente satisfechos con su presencia. Muchísimas gracias, nos estamos viendo.